It appears the flight was doomed from the get-go. Witnesses say it crashed less than a mile away from the airport it departed, landing on the property of a nearby plant.
That's right. This happened mid-shift at the General Mills factory here in Covington.
The state secretary of agriculture told us he feels confident in the efforts being made to stop the spread of avian flu.
Avian influenza is one of those viruses that has us concerned.
We have to contain this virus. That's what this game is about right now. That's what this game is about.
Welcome back to the channel. This is Anna's Thoughts and Musical Parodies, and I am Anna, your hostess. Thank you so much for being here today. Since you enjoyed these videos, I would suggest that you take a moment and subscribe to my backup channel as well, Anna Speaks Out. That will be linked in the website in the description. I'm going to put all the same videos there that I put here, just in case anything were to happen to this channel. That's where everything will continue. So, as you may or may not have heard recently, as it is not one of the biggest things in the mainstream news cycle, there have been a lot of interesting things happening in the last few months, since the beginning of 2022 at least, involving the means of food production and distribution in the United States. For example, here from a website called themostimportantnews.com is a list of 16 major fires that have occurred at key food industry facilities in the U.S. just since the start of 2022. Taylor Farms in Salinas, California, a food processing facility in Oregon, East Conway Beef and Pork in New Hampshire, Texas, Arkansas, Wisconsin, Illinois, Maine, Kansas, Indiana, Winston-Salem, Carolina, Washington State, Louisiana, Maricopa, Arizona, Dufur, Oregon, and Plainfield, Indiana. So isn't that interesting? What are the odds that there would be so many things happening so close together, so many little disasters happening that are all related, and that they all involve things having to do with food production? Very interesting. Also, the World Economic Forum let us know just a month ago that there likely, apparently, will be disastrous, catastrophic food shortages. And of course, it's Russia's fault, according to them.
Ukraine grows enough food to feed 400 million people on planet Earth. So when the farmers on the battlefields aren't planting or aren't harvesting, what impact do you think that's going to have? 50% of our grain, for example, wheat, comes from Ukraine. And then when you start putting in the global context of Russia and Ukraine together, not even get into the fertilizer costs and the fertilizer excess of base products, you've got a catastrophe knocking and looming on the door for the fall. That will be not a price issue, but a supply issue, availability of food for people around the world, and that will be a catastrophe on top of a catastrophe. This is one of the reasons we need to get the farmers in Ukraine back into the field so they can plant and harvest over the next few months. Otherwise, can the G7 countries and all other nations around the world make up for that supply?
If you are a rich household in advanced economies or even in Africa, you will adjust to rising food price. Now, if you're a poor household in, as you said, the Horn of Africa, you already spent 80-90% of your daily income on food. So you don't really have a margin for adjustment except eating less.
But that's just the latest that they have on this topic, at least as far as I've seen. Over a year ago, they had this to say. 3 urgent actions to redesign the future of food in 2021. Frailties in the production and supply of food have again come to the fore during the C-19 pandemic. And they said the pandemic presents a powerful opportunity to redesign food systems. Don't let a good disaster go to waste, you know? And then there's pretty much all this word salad about unity and collaboration and all that kind of thing. And then here's the really fun part. Data from satellite and geospatial operators, ICT and telecommunications providers, e-commerce and logistics companies, and finance providers can be brought to bear. During the onset of the pandemic, for example, the Kenyan government established a cross-ministry and cross-sector data-driven food security war room. This allowed digital tools to be deployed in real time to collect data, which informed the response and recovery to COVID-19 and its impact on food supply, as well as to a series of compound simultaneous threats, including a disastrous locust plague and extreme weather. So they're saying it's a great idea to have constant surveillance going on. And, you know, surveillance can be used for all kinds of things. China is a good example of that. And then another grand idea that the World Economic Forum has for redesigning food systems is something called the Food Action Alliance, led by partners from public, private, and civil society, farmer and consumer organizations, and academia. And it basically all comes down to the idea of collectivism and just almost being like a commune or something. So all of what we've talked about so far has had to do with grains and plant foods, but apparently they're saying that there's something wrong with the chickens as well. The USDA Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service said this year, 2022, that they have confirmed highly pathogenic avian influenza in Pennsylvania and Utah. And as part of their response efforts, birds on the properties where they allegedly found this virus will be depopulated.
And this afternoon, the state secretary of agriculture told us he feels confident in the efforts being made to stop the spread of avian flu.
We have to contain this virus. That's what this game is about right now.
And the state's efforts to do that are working so far. All 3 of this week's positive cases of avian flu in Pennsylvania are in what's called the control zone, as the limitations being imposed on all of the farms in the control zone are working.
We put more restrictions in than anybody would prefer from a business standpoint, but really critical to reassure the markets and also our international trading partners that we've got command of this.
The secretary adds that the state has learned a lot since the avian flu outbreak in the 1980s, and it's those lessons that are helping them have a strong response today.
The interesting thing about all that, though, is that there was a medical hypotheses paper published in late December of 2005 on an NIH.gov website that concluded avian flu virus H5N1, no proof for existence, pathogenicity, or pandemic potential. H5N1 Asia virus can be produced completely in vitro by using reverse genetics. Cannot contain contaminants from sick animals. The first characterization of H5N1 disease in a human was claimed to have occurred in 1997, but they failed to detect the virus in several diseased organs. Animal pathogenicity papers describe the use of natural routes, but disease was only achieved with extraordinary concentrations. Another paper that was supposed to show evidence of the virus was an anecdotal report, and no evidence was given for transmissibility to humans. And Robert Webster, corresponding author of the PNAS paper and director of WHO's Collaborating Center for Studies on the Ecology of Influenza in Animals and Birds, informed the writers of this paper that stock viruses are classified as select agents and we are not at liberty to release this information. Very interesting. The final conclusion was that none of the references considered reasonable competing theories for disease causation, and the analysis shows the papers do not satisfy the 4 basic questions that were asked, and claims of H5N1 pathogenicity and pandemic potential need to be challenged further. So if H5N1 was being claimed without proof back in 2005, it stands to question, in my opinion, could that be happening again now? Like, what in reality would have actually changed so much that we would have a real outbreak now that could be proven? This is all just food for thought, pun intended, so let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you again so much for being here today. Since you liked the video enough to make it all the way to the end, don't forget to click the thumbs up and share with somebody else who would also find it interesting. Leave your comments below and we'll all have a conversation. And if you really enjoyed, check out the description for several different ways that you can support while getting some cool stuff for yourself. Have a wonderful night, afternoon, morning, evening, whatever time zone you are in. And I will see you next time. Bye.